And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome, everyone. I'm meteorologist Peter Chan with the National Weather Service, and this is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook for Saturday, April 6, 2024. And we start out with the sea ice on this Saturday afternoon. We still have quite a bit of ice here through the central northern Bering, though the edge of it is certainly more frazzled here off of Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays. But the more important thing we have coming up weather-wise is a stronger low will be crossing the eastern Aleutians tonight and then emerge in the North Pacific before secondary low takes shape right now south of Kodiak Island and moves up into the Gulf. What's going to happen is cold front pushing down out of the Chukchi Sea is going to pass through the Bering Strait Sunday and then race some late season Arctic air is going to come in behind that system later Sunday and into Monday and all the way cutting across the Alaska Peninsula. So that means winds are going to go around to the north-northwest, and this will likely cause the ice to advance southward here Sunday night and into early next week. We also have the potential with these stronger winds for some heavy to extreme freezing spray in this area of the southeast Bering around the Pribilov Islands, as well as once you get outside of both Kuskokwim and Bristol Bay. So these areas out through here of the southeast Bering could see some heavy to extreme freezing spray coming up, especially Sunday night through Monday and even into early Tuesday. So looking at the map here, late tonight, early Sunday morning, the low that was out here north of the central Aleutians will be crossing the eastern Aleutians into the North Pacific. Secondary low moves from south of Kodiak Island up toward the central Gulf. This front will be pushing up along the Panhandle, bringing another round of rain to the low elevations and some lighter snow into the coastal mountains and up through, say, the Haines and Klondike highways. As you get up in elevation there, maybe a few inches of slushy, wet snow. Here's that cold front, though, that'll be advancing southward through the Bering Strait later tonight and Sunday morning. By the time we get into Sunday afternoon, that front will have quickly cleared most of the Seward Peninsula and will be advancing southward to link up with this original low. The secondary low will be sitting up near the central Gulf with this front pushing in through the Panhandle. Winds along this front could reach lower gale force and like 35 knots areas of the Panhandle. But again, that cold air is going to be racing southward and will be increasing the likelihood of that freezing spray here over the southeast portion of the Bering. And then for Monday afternoon, we find the secondary low is kind of like the main low then. And then there's going to be maybe yet another low try to redevelop back here toward the western Gulf along the Kenai coast as a result of this cold air wrapping in across the Alaska Peninsula and then curling on up into the southwestern Gulf. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but as that happens, that'll force this low to want to retrograde westward back toward the Kenai coastline as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday, and that's what could maybe bring some additional snowfall, light snowfall at that, if it can make it into Anchorage. So looking at the winds here for the marine forecast, southeast winds could gust as high as 35 knots around Ketchikan, Metlakatla with 6-7 foot waves, Dixon entrance. Southeast 25 knots, Stevens Passage around Petersburg, and then north winds 20, gust to 35 knots, Lynn Canal with 4 foot waves. The outer coast south of Sitka, southwest winds to 35 knots, 13, 14 foot swells. Those winds turn more easterly, 25 knots outside there of Yakutat Bay and Cape Suckling with 12 to 13 foot swells. On Monday, south-southeast winds 15 knots, inner channels, waves generally a few feet. For the outer coast, south winds south of Sitka 20 knots, southeast to east winds 20 knots, Gustavus off of outside of Yakutat Bay to Cape Suckling, and swells in the 10-11 foot range. Across the northwestern Gulf, we have northeast winds Prince William Sound 15 knots, 3 foot waves. Off the Kenai coast, northeast winds 20 knots, 25 knot east northeast winds outside of Hinchinbrook entrance. North winds 15 to 20 knots, upper middle Cook Inlet, northeasterly 20 knots there out of Homer, with waves around 6 foot swells there with the entrance there to Cook Inlet. Monday, variable winds 10 knots off the Kenai, northeast winds 10 knots within Prince William Sound, a couple of foot waves. North winds to 10 knots, upper middle Cook Inlet there west of Anchor Point. Westerly winds, though, lower Cook Inlet with swells 5-6 feet. Across the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, northeast winds around 15 to 20 knots. They will turn more northerly there through Cold Bay, False Pass at 25 knots on Sunday. We're still waiting for the cold air yet to arrive, but Monday you see the difference. Monday, look for west winds across Kodiak Island, 25 to 30 knots, but across the peninsula, generally brisk 30-knot northwesterly winds and waves 5 to maybe 9 feet outside here on the North Pacific side, but easily running around 10 feet on the Bering side, with areas of freezing spray up through here likely. And then for the Aleutians, winds will be northwesterly, eastern central Aleutians around 30 knots, waves 10, 13 feet on the north or on the Bering side, and 12 to 15 feet on the North Pacific side. And for Monday then, winds continue northwesterly across the eastern and central Aleutians at 20 to 25 knots. More westerly, 15 to 25 knots, or 15 to 20 knots west of Adak. Now along the southwest and west coast, in the wake of this colder air that'll be plunging southward Sunday and Sunday night, winds are going to be northerly, 20, 25 knots there, Norton Sound along the outer areas of the Yukon coastline, and then out of Kuskokwim Bay. Ice is in place, so these northerly winds will cause the ice to advance southward here Sunday night and into the day on Monday. Monday, the winds will be brisk here along the Yukon coast through Etolin Strait, could be higher than 30 knots, and then even there within Bristol and Kuskokwim Bays, we're looking at northwesterly 30-knot winds, so there's that potential for the ice to continue pushing southward, and also areas of heavy to extreme freezing spray are possible from the Pribilofs to offshore of Bristol Bay and Kuskokwim Bays Monday into early Tuesday. Through the Bering Strait, winds Sunday will be shifting more northerly, 30 knots as that cold front pushes south. By afternoon, it'll be clearing the strait and down around St. Lawrence Island. In the wake of it, winds are generally north-northwest, 15 knots, northwest Arctic coast along the central eastern Arctic coast from Utqiagvik to Kaktovik. And then for Monday, winds will generally be northerly, still around 30 knots through the Bering Strait, falling off to 15 knots there once you get north and west of Point Ley and Utqiagvik. Northerly winds 15 knots extending to Prudhoe Bay, and then a little more westerly around Kaktovik at 20 knots. So yes, a little dose of Arctic air where temperatures are going to be colder. We'll see lows below zero along the northwest coast and areas of the Seward coastline, so keep that in mind. Ice will have a tendency to want to shift around, especially with that initial push of stronger winds as we go through Sunday into early Monday.